Hi, guys. Welcome to the first episode of our podcast, The Full Time Warrior. I'm your host, Will. Hopefully, we'll have my wife, Tony Joy, on here in the future. Why the full time warrior? Well, I think we all know what a weekend warrior is, so we're basically the opposite of that. And if you're a fan of the old WWF wrestling series, I think you'll enjoy the logo I came up with for the show. Why a podcast? We spend a lot of time on the road, obviously, traveling from one place to another. And we listen to podcasts and YouTube videos and audiobooks and things like that. So I thought if somebody's in a similar situation, they could just be on the road and press play and listen to what we're about to talk about. Also, we have a lot of information to cover, and I thought this was the best format to do it. So, what are we going to cover in this episode? We're going to cover how to get started if you're interested in becoming a full time warrior. Our current situation is this: Tony Joy and I bought a travel trailer, a 2023 Ember 201 FBQ, in late October of 2022. We moved into the trailer full time in November. We lived in the trailer for 2 months during the holidays, so November and December. Then we hit the road on January 4th for a 3-month tour of the Southwest. So California, Arizona, Nevada, and Utah. And right now, as I record this, we're back in the Bay Area for a short stint. How did we begin this journey? During the COVID lockdown, Tony Joy and I talked about becoming digital nomads. She had friends who were doing it. They basically put all of their stuff in storage and then took flights from one big city to another, staying in Airbnbs. That was super cool, at least to us. But the timing wasn't really right. We had just signed a lease for our apartment. We had just gotten a dog. I just didn't think it was very practical at the time, but I think that was the seed. In 2022, we bought a Dodge Ram 1500, and that was mainly to fulfill my childhood dream of having a pickup truck. It was only later that we started thinking about buying a small travel trailer, like a teardrop trailer, in order to do more camping since we both really like camping. And at that time, we started watching a lot of RV related YouTube videos. Perhaps the one we most watch was RVs of America, ROA Off Road, their YouTube channel. They're based in Linden, Utah. And they got us interested in these Australian type of off-road travel trailers. I think, you've probably seen them. They're really rugged. They're built for not only off-road, but off-grid lifestyles. And we went to a local dealer and we saw an OBI Dweller 13 in person. And that was pretty cool. It was probably a little bit smaller than what we were thinking, but kind of kept the wheels turning on this discussion. So TJ, Tony Joy, she applied for and eventually received full-time remote status. I had already been working fully remotely since 2014 as a contractor. So once she received that approval, it was like game on, and we circled back to this idea of being digital nomads. We went to another local dealer and we went to check out the Black Series trailers because they had like 3 or 4 different models on hand. And they were cool, but the quality was kind of like, meh. If we looked at the details inside, we could see that some things were lacking. And so we kept looking online and we found Ember, and specifically the 201 FBQ. And I think we were attracted to it almost immediately because it looked like it was really made for a couple, which is us, obviously. No kids, 2 little dogs, but no kids. And so there wasn't any wasted space for us. Like You'll typically see bunk beds or a loft or something like that, obviously made for a small family. So instead of that, it had storage, things that we needed. We also like the fact that the Ember 201 FBQ had a full queen bed, had a nice sized bathroom. It has the Kurt independent suspension. And after having been on the road for 3 months, I can honestly say I haven't seen anything anywhere near the Kurt independent suspension on trailers we've come across, except for the one time when we saw another Ember in the wild. We're out in Sedona. That's been the one and only time so far we saw another Ember. Usually with trailers, sometimes you'll see really nice off-road tires on them, but the suspension just is normal on. So nothing like the Kurt suspension. We're also attracted to the really good solar capabilities, the large fresh water tank, the styling and design of the exterior. We've gotten some compliments from people on the Ember, and to me, it looks so much more modern and rugged, kind of, and stylish than what you typically see. I'm kind of thinking of travel trailers can be really boxy, and they have that, like, I don't know if it's aluminum siding um, that looks like corrugated metal. Just kind of, so the Ember just kind of felt fresh to us. And if the trailer met our size and weight requirements. So if you're interested in RV life, what are the trailer type and maker considerations? First, are you going to be a weekend warrior or a full-time warrior? How much off-roading are you actually going to do? I think you should start with doing your research on specific brands. That is, customer satisfaction with those brands. Because no matter who the maker is, you can expect issues, even if the trailer's brand new. I feel like this is the dirty little secret about RVs, even though really it's not a secret. It seems like an open secret. Everyone we talk to and on all the online forums, they all mention how brand new RVs have issues. Whether it's a $50,000 trailer or it's a $200,000 trailer, they all have issues when you buy them. So are there some makers that are better than others in that regard? Next, what size truck are you going to tow with? The truck will determine the weight of the trailer. Now, we did things the opposite way because, like I mentioned earlier, we bought the truck first, and when we bought it, we weren't thinking about doing this. If we had, then we would have bought a bigger truck, like a 3/4 ton truck. Instead, we went with the half ton, the Dodge Ram 1500. If I could do it again, knowing what I know now, I would have gotten the 2500. What are the weight considerations of your truck and trailer? So no matter how you do it, if you did it like us, you have the truck and now you want to buy the trailer, or you don't have the truck yet and you're eyeing a specific trailer, you got to be aware of the weight considerations, because a half-ton truck can only pull so much weight. The 2500, the 3/4 ton truck, that can tow almost anything, I'd say, and is a lot more popular, at least from what I've seen on the road. If you haven't heard of it, the 80-20 towing rule, I think, is a good one to start with. You shouldn't tow above 80% of your max towing capacity. If you look up these things online, you'll be hit with all different acronyms and weight ratings. The one that probably matters the most is the GCVWR, the Gross Combined Vehicle Weight Rating. That's the max allowable weight of your truck and trailer combined. So in order to know that, you have to consult your ratings individually. That is, go on, look at your truck. Now on your truck, it's usually on the inside of the door, the driver's side door, there'll be a sticker that gives you all the different weight ratings. For the trailer, it's usually something else. It might be in your documents, for example. So you have to become intimately aware of those numbers to make sure you don't exceed them. Once you've decided on your truck and trailer, you've got them together, you should really go to a CAT scale, that's a CAT scale, to determine its total weight. Because together the weight can fluctuate, of course. For example, whether it's full of all of your stuff or just some of your stuff or none of your stuff, or you've got the tanks filled with water. So what I recommend is once you got your truck and your trailer, you've determined that they can work together, you do a test, you put everything in the truck and trailer that you think you're going to need when you hit the road, and you go to the CAT scale. Now, I'm not going to go over instructions on how to do that. There are a lot of in-depth videos that you can see on YouTube about using a CAT scale. It's fairly straightforward if you just watch those videos first. The last thing that I'll mention for this bit is the GAWR, the gross axle weight rating. That is the max weight you can have on your front and rear axles. And this is actually why we ended up having to buy a weight distribution hitch. Our GCVWR was fine, but the GAWR was not. So to find your GAWR, you need to find your axle ratio online by your specific make and model truck. Then go look up the GAWR chart. So a lot of numbers out there. Tony Joy is actually more of a number person than I am, so she's been tasked with figuring these things out. She's done an exceptional job so far. But let's move on and let's talk about buying a new trailer. Because for us, it was our first trailer, and we did some research online, but honestly, I don't think that we did enough before buying the trailer. So hopefully, if you're in a similar situation, you've never bought one, you can glean something from this. First, let's talk about financing. If this is going to be your home, so if you're buying a house, but instead you're buying a trailer, same situation, you want to pay in full if you can, right? Because you don't want to be in debt. And if you can't pay in full, I recommend putting down a large down payment, as big as you can, and then paying off the trailer as quick as you can, because those interest rates can get you. Now, RVs, if you didn't know, they depreciate in value quickly. They lose 20% of their value the moment they're driven off the dealer's lot. Class A rigs lose 30% of their value after only 3 years of ownership. Class C RVs lose about 38% of their value after 5 years. And fifth wheels lose 45% of their value after 5 years of ownership. Knowing depreciation, I think, helps because you don't necessarily have to buy a new trailer. In fact, if you buy a recent trailer, you'll save a lot of money. I've noticed, kind of like cars, once the new version of that model comes out, the previous year's version starts to drop in price. So if you fall in love with a particular model of trailer and you can wait, you're probably better off waiting until the new version of that model comes out, and then you can go to the RV dealer, get last year's version, the one that you were eyeing anyway, and get a much better price on it. Now, here's some of the mistakes that we made. Try not to laugh, okay? The first thing to know, which we didn't, is that you can haggle with the dealer over the sticker price, just like a car, even though you're buying your home. So we didn't haggle. We just figured, we looked at the cost breakdown, the sticker price, all the add-ons, etc., and figured out, we're getting a good deal. But we've seen online that other people bought the same model for less. This is a good one. This is one we also didn't do because we didn't really know. Hire a third-party inspector to do a pre-purchase inspection on the trailer before you buy it. And that goes for whether you're buying new or used. I think that's very smart. Now, the cost on this, from what I've seen, it's about $500. And yeah, that's a lot of money, but if you're going to be investing thousands of dollars in your trailer, maybe even over $100,000, then I think that's a small price to pay. So get that third-party inspection. Also, I highly recommend getting up on the ladder and inspecting the roof yourself. One thing you want to look at is how everything's been sealed. If anything looks like it's out of place. This kind of leads into the next point here. Before you buy the trailer, before you agree to buy the trailer, you want to thoroughly inspect all of the nooks and crannies yourself and make a list of everything the dealer needs to address before you buy and pick up the trailer. Because like I mentioned before, no matter who makes the trailer, and even if it's new, it's going to have issues. So make a list of those issues, a checklist, and then make sure they've all been crossed off when you pick up the trailer. And when you pick up the trailer, you should take reference videos on your phone when they show you how to operate everything. Basically, a tech will come and go through everything that's important and show you how to use it. Don't make one long video, that's 1 hour long or something. Break it up into multiple videos that are 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever, so that you can quickly reference them later. Now, just like a car, when you go to sign the papers, the dealer's going to throw all kinds of extras at you at additional costs. So what should you purchase from the dealer? And I'm talking about things like extended warranties, coating the exterior with protectants, tire and wheel protection, nitrogen for the tires, and roadside assistance. So when we got our trailer, we sat there with the dealer and he presented basically all the things I just mentioned. And we said, okay, we're going to think about it. And we didn't sign up for anything else at that time. Ember's warranty seems really good for the industry, so we didn't add on any extra warranty. The Ember also already came with things like nitrogen in the tires, so we didn't need that. For roadside assistance, we ended up going with Good Sam RV roadside assistant based on our own research. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you you should do this or you should do that. I'm just saying you should look into it beforehand or after if you want to, like we did. But if you know beforehand, then you can just say no and not listen to the spiel. So let's move on to startup costs. Initial startup costs, including the cost of the trailer, obviously, are going to be really high. We made an initial list of things to buy, but inevitably more and more things arise just as you start living in it and you realize, oh, I need this, I need that. So you do end up buying more. So just be aware, if you're throwing a ton of money at the trailer, you're also going to need something to buy for the accessories. So I'm going to go over some needs for both your truck and your trailer. And these aren't comprehensive. They're just recommendations. They're not requirements. So some things you may have already, some things you may not, some things you may decide you don't need. For the truck, you may need suspension airbags to help pull the trailer to make the ride smoother. You may need a transmission cooler so your truck doesn't overheat. And we'll talk about these two items in depth a little later. You may need a battery starter with jumper cables. You may need a tire inflator. You may need a nice jack that ideally would work for both the truck and the trailer. Trailer needs, again, no way comprehensive. And I'm not going to cover upgrades here. And I'm just going to start from the ground up. So we recommend Camco small RV stabilizing jack pads. 4 of them if you have 4 stabilizers like we do on our Ember. Camco large RV stabilizing jack pads times 2 for the front. Camco heavy duty stabilizer RV jack support. Now this provides you 7 inches of lift. It has a 6,000 pound rating, and this is for those times where you need to get the front of the trailer, the tongue box, pretty high off the ground. Wheel chocks. Of course, the number that you need depends on the number of tires you have. Andersen hitches, the camper leveler system. You want a good level for leveling the trailer. A spare tire cover for the spare tire, duh. Tire covers. This is for whenever you're staying at some place for, more than 1 or 2 days to protect your tires. A 0G water hose for drinking water, or just a really good water hose. An RV marine water filter. A water pressure regulator. A Rhino Flex sewer hose by Camco. I feel like Camco's cornered the market on a lot of this stuff. A Rhino Flex sewer hose support. You see these a lot, though sometimes you'll see just people lay their hoses on the ground, but I recommend it because some RV sites require you to have one. A 15 to 30 amp power adapter and or a 30 to 50 amp power adapter or 50 amp to 30 power adapter. It's nice to have options in this regard. A surge protector. And if you're spending a lot of money on the surge protector, sometimes it can cost hundreds of dollars, then you'll want a lock for that surge protector. You'll want RV safe toilet paper or septic safe paper. I'd say at least 1 fire extinguisher. Usually a trailer comes with 1 already. If it's a really big trailer, maybe you're buying a 5th wheel, then 3 or 4 maybe fire extinguishers. Nano double-sided mounting tape. This is really good for putting things on your walls that you might want to take down later. A wireless hand vacuum comes in handy. We recommend Dyson. It's expensive, but we think it's worth it. We recommend a power bank, especially for dry camping. We have an EcoFlow and we like it a lot. A gas-powered generator. We have the Predator 3500 that we got from Harbor Freight Tools, and it's worked really well for us. A clear silicone for the ease of application. Sealant for around the trailer leaks. inevitably arise. But we recommend Dicor self-leveling lap sealant for the roof, anything on the roof. A Camco RV roof vent cover. So our Ember didn't come one for the vent in our bathroom, so we bought one from the dealer. Turtle Seal and Shine Super Slick Spray. This is a protectant for the exterior of the trailer, and this might be something that the dealer offers you as an add-on, but you can buy the spray and do it yourself. How about camping needs, basic camping needs? For that, we're going to trust that you know where to start. And if you're interested in this lifestyle, you've done some camping before. But just wanted to mention two things. If you have dogs, then we recommend buying good headlamps. Those have been invaluable for us. As an alternative, we like the Cobalt LED neck light from Home Depot. Now let's move on to towing. Towing needs. Suspension airbags. I mentioned earlier. The transmission cooler I mentioned earlier. So, on forums you'll see people talk about suspension airbags and weight distribution hitches. And do you need both? And the consensus seems to be no, you don't need both. And people opt for the weight distribution hitch. So in our case, we bought our truck from my wife's stepdad, and he's a professional truck driver. He's been doing it for decades. So we asked him for advice before we even bought our trailer. What do we need? And so he actually recommended 3 things, and we ended up going with all 3. But you may not need all 3. So listen, take it under advisement, and do what you think is best for yourself. First was the suspension airbags, and this generally helps with the ride once you've connected the trailer to your truck. So I ordered those airbags from Amazon. I bought the Airlift 25980EZ WirelessONE, and we had them professionally installed because I'm not a mechanic in any way, shape, or form, and I didn't want to make any grievous mistakes. Although airbags generally are supposed to be self-installation, so if you're good with cars, you can probably do it yourself. Next was a transmission cooler, and that was to make sure that the truck doesn't overheat. So I actually ended up talking to a transmission expert about this. And he said, since you own a Dodge Ram, you probably don't need to put in a transmission cooler. Dodge Rams have thermostats inside them, built in inside them when you buy them. 2014 and newer models of Ram trucks, they've always been known to run hotter than their earlier predecessors. And they come with a warming unit that unnecessarily pre-warms the transmission fluid to engine operating temperatures. This means that almost immediately your transmission will be running hot at over 200 degrees. So instead of going with a transmission cooler, I ended up buying a Thermostat Bypass. It's just a small little part from RevMax, and I had it professionally installed again for the reasons I mentioned a minute ago. So they installed this little part and they removed another little part. And so now our transmission hasn't come anywhere close to overheating when we pull the trailer. So obviously this tidbit doesn't help if you don't drive a Ram. If you're driving a Ford or Chevy, GMC, whatever, you may still want the transmission cooler. I don't know. The distribution hitch. This can be a little awkward for Embers. If you're familiar with the tongue box, of an Ember. Not every distribution hitch is going to work. In fact, when we purchased our trailer, we told the dealer we want a distribution hitch. They said, okay. They put it on the invoice. When we got there, they said, hey, we couldn't put on the hitch because of the tongue box. The tongue box is in the way. So we drove away that day with the trailer without using the hitch. And, we got it to where it needed to go fine without the hitch. But later on, when we got the hitch put on and we weighed ourselves on the cat scale and everything, we figured out that the hitch was super useful in distributing the weight better in the trailer. So we ended up buying an Equal-i-zer 4-point sway control hitch because we saw online that other people were having success using this brand with the Ember. And for us, it's worked out really well. It's pretty simple to use. We did the install ourselves with the help of my brother. The one tricky part is this. If you buy the Equal-i-zer, you can get it with or without the ball. If you buy it without the ball, because maybe you already have a hitch that has the ball, what I've seen online is people end up having to go to a mechanic or a garage and have them install the ball because it takes a ton of torque to put that ball on there. So when I bought it, I just decided, what the heck, I'm going to get it with the ball. And when I opened up the package, they had already installed the ball on there, so I didn't need to worry about that. The easiest thing for you, if you're not buying an Ember, or if you're buying an Ember from a dealer who's used to dealing with Ember, is that you tell them you want a distribution hitch too. So when you pick up your trailer, they've already installed the hitch for you. That seems to be the easiest thing, and I've seen people do that. It just didn't work out for us. So let's move on to internet solutions. There seem to be 3 popular things right now. 1, hotspots. 2, Starlink. 3, PepWave routers. The easiest thing in our experience would be hotspots, because if you have a smartphone, you should be able to use that as a hotspot. Or you can buy a dedicated hotspot. It's usually just this flimsy little plastic box. I say easy because if you're in an area with good cell service, you don't need to install anything or set up anything really. You just connect to the hotspot and go. The main problem with this is most places that you stay at, they just inevitably seem to have terrible cell service. So the hotspot ends up not being very useful. Or scratch that, not useful at all. So if you're internet, you're going to want at least 2 systems, a primary and a secondary, to act as a backup. So we also have Starlink. The greatest thing I can say about Starlink is it's better than nothing. Seriously. If you're in a place with no cell service, then Starlink is better than that, because it'll give you something. It's not necessarily going to give you something great all the time, but it gives you something. Typically with Starlink, first thing in the morning, it works really well. By midday, it's working okay. Then in the evening, as there's a crunch of users, I think it can really dwindle down to say 1 megabyte per second, maybe even less download speed. So if you end up using Starlink and you like to watch TV in the evening after work, one thing that we've done is we find what we want to watch during the day and we download them onto our iPad during the day when we have strong download speeds. And then in the evening, we watch the downloads instead of just getting a circle of death on the screen because the internet sucks at that point. The third method is something that we haven't used. It's PEP-Wave routers. PEP-Wave routers provide link aggregation and load balancing across multiple WAN connections, allowing a combination of technologies like 3G, blah, 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 blah. You can see it here on the screen. So basically, it seems like it takes everything to give you something. And the costs associated with that can be expensive. Starlink, the hardware costs are also expensive. So since we use Starlink and not a PEP-Wave router, I can't obviously talk about the PEP-Wave router. I can only recommend what we have. I just thought of another internet solution that wasn't on my list, and that is the WeBoost. It's a piece of hardware that boosts your cellular signal. So if you have a poor signal, it can give you an okay signal. If you have an okay signal, it can give you a good signal. I don't know how well these work in real life. I haven't met anyone yet who has one. I've just seen people talk about them online. But just like Starlink and PEP-Wave routers, there's a hardware cost associated with that. So, where to stay? Generally, you want to ask yourself if you need full hookups. That's power, water, and sewer. If you don't, maybe you don't need any of those. You can do boondocking or dry camping for a while. Boondocking basically just means you don't need hookups. Generally, you're out in public land. You're not paying rent, so to speak, and you're just using your solar or your generator. Your tank's already full of water, and you're going to fill your black water tank up. So we do dry camping about for a week at a time, and then we'll go to some place that has hookups for like the weekend, and then we'll go back to dry camping. But I mean, you can figure out ways to do dry camping continuously if you're smart about it. If you want to, go drain your black tank somewhere or go grab fresh water from somewhere else. People like to do that. Of course, the advantage of dry camping generally is if you're on public land, you're not having to pay all that rent. So that is very budget friendly, and it's something I think you should try unless you just don't have the power capabilities for it. What is Wally docking? Wally docking comes from Walmart. It's kind of this idea that you can go spend the night in a Walmart parking lot for free anywhere. But that's just not true, and we found it to not be true. So anytime you're thinking of doing that at a Walmart, you need to call them first, talk to the manager, and ask if you can stay the night. Because most of the time, actually, Walmart says no. Or you go to the lot and they have signs up saying no overnight camping. The last Walmart that we asked for permission, they said the city doesn't allow it, but we're okay with it if you don't make a fuss. Well, at that point, we decided to move on because it wasn't kosher with the city. We didn't want some police officer knocking on our trailer door at 2 a.m. But Walmart is not the only place that you can do this. We've had the most success at Cracker Barrel, actually. We've done that twice, and they were very inviting. REI lets you do it, or at least you should call beforehand. Casinos will let you do it. Truck stops let you do it. I think we spent one night at a Flying J's. Anyway, like I said, just be sure no matter who you go to, you should call ahead. unless it's a truck stop. I mean, I think they're pretty used to that at this point. RV parks are obviously going to be high on the list on where you're going to stay, and they come in all shapes and sizes and varieties. The nicer ones have nice landscaping and give you a picnic table and a grill and some room to breathe. Other ones are just like parking lots, and you're shoved right in there next to the person next to you, and you hear everything that's going on in their trailer. Um, Campgrounds, obviously, state national parks, and then BLM land. That's public land. That stands for Bureau of Land Management. Now, when it comes to state planning, this is actually Tony Joy's area of expertise, but you've got a variety of options. I think one of the most popular apps out there is Campendium. And basically, you can do all kinds of research on where to stay, where you want to go, and you can filter it. There's a lot of filters. There's also RV Life. That's another app. We're currently using that to make our trip wizard. There's Boondockers Welcome and Harvest Host. I'm not sure if they're owned by the same entity or if they're just associated with each other, but it's kind of the same idea of you pay an annual fee and then you can go stay a night at a business or someone's residence. And if it's Harvest Host, you're staying at a business, generally they expect you to buy something from them just as kind of like a thank you or a tip. There's also Hip Camp. It's kind of like the Airbnb of the RV world. So take a look at all of those. If you follow RV Life people on YouTube, generally you'll hear them pushing these things from time to time, like Boondockers Welcome and Harvest Host, and they'll offer a discount code for you to sign up. So look for those. All right, so that was the first episode of the Full Time Warrior podcast. Kind of rocky. Hopefully, it'll get better as we go. On the next episode, I hope to have Tony Joy here, and we'll be talking about our first trip, that 3-month trip through the Southwest. We'll discuss our itinerary in detail. More importantly, we'll talk about what we learned along the way, because I know that'll interest a lot of newbies. We'll even spill the dirt on all the stupid mistakes that we made. Good times, right? That's next time on the Full Time Warrior podcast. Thanks for listening.